Today we're looking at the 2026 Subaru Uncharted. Yes, it is kind of a weird name and it's kind of a weird car, but I actually think this might be the most fun electric vehicle that Subaru builds. They make 3 EVs now. There's the Trailseeker, the Solterra, and the Uncharted. This one is the GT trim. That's the top trim. It means we have these 20-inch wheels. We get this great two-tone paint job up here with the black roof. You can get this in a total of 5 different colors. Now around at the back, you're gonna have Subaru's wide space letters spelling out the brand right across the back there. You've got Uncharted on the back left, all-wheel drive on the back right, because it's a Subaru. Of course it has all-wheel drive. Well, we have a surprise in store for you there a little later in the video. I've always liked the door-mounted rear handles here. You don't see that on a lot of vehicles. It's kind of fun. And then at the front, we have a big illuminated Subaru badge. I think this looks really cool. I like how big the badge is. Subaru's really letting the badge do the work. I also think the 20-inch wheels on this GT trim look really good. And overall, the fastback silhouette is a nice look. You can tell that it's definitely gonna eat into some cargo space, so this isn't the most practical EV Subaru makes, but it might be the most fun. Subaru sells the Uncharted in 3 distinct trim levels: the Premium, the Sport, and at the very top of the range, the GT. That's the one we are driving today. Now, all 3 trim levels are powered by the same 74.7 kilowatt hour battery pack. That's the same battery that they also use in the Trailseeker and the Subaru Solterra. But there is a difference with the CHR, because while the Sport and the GT trims both have dual motor all-wheel drive and 338 horsepower, the base trim is front-wheel drive. Yeah, a front-wheel drive Subaru. Those are words I have not said in quite a long time. Now, there's also a little bit of tomfoolery going on with that base premium trim. It's the least expensive. It's only front-wheel drive, makes 221 horsepower, and it's being sold in, shall we say, limited quantities. Most likely, the majority of them are going to be sold in California, where we're actually testing this vehicle, but you will be able to hypothetically order the base trim in all 50 states. Now, when it comes to charging, all Uncharted's, God, that name, I'm never going to get used to that. All Uncharted models have the Tesla-style North American charging system plug, so that means you're going to be able to use Tesla superchargers to keep the battery all topped up in this sucker. And if you get the base trim, that means 308 miles of total driving range. But of course, you probably aren't going to be driving the base trim, so consider it a 287 mile range EV if you get the Sport, or in the case of the GT, because it's a little heavier, it has bigger wheels, that drops down to 273 miles. Now, in terms of performance, we have the dual motor all-wheel drive one right here. It doesn't use the same rear motor as the Trailseeker does. It's a less powerful rear motor, but it still feels very sprightly. 300, I mean, you get the same like back of your seat acceleration that is a hallmark of EVs, and it benefits from the same incredibly just sublime steering feel. It was really direct, really predictable and linear. It's, people say like, oh, it's got that point and shoot steering, and that feels so cliche, but it really does feel like you are driving some sort of video game. I really like it. We were kind of talking off camera about how we're living in this era where it's not necessarily who has the fastest car, it's who has the car that feels the fastest. And as the world of sports cars continues to get just passed by the world of EVs, at least in terms of straight line speed, this one manages to match not just the speed of a performance car, but it has some of that driving feel, those dynamics. So if you're looking for a sporty EV and you want a Subaru, the Uncharted is the Subaru EV to buy. Now, let's say you are at one of those Tesla superchargers after you've depleted the majority of your 287 or 273 mile driving range. How long is it going to take to replenish the tank, if you will, the fuel, the battery cells? Well, assuming you find a charger that can output 150 kilowatts, that is the maximum charging rate, the peak charging rate for the Uncharted, you should be able to go to 80%, 10 to 80% in about 28 minutes. That's spectacular. And if you use the navigation system to direct yourself to that charging station, that plug, that means that the system will automatically engage the battery preconditioning system. So by the time you get there, the battery will have been preconditioned, ready to accept the charge. This is like a great feature in vehicles that more and more EV owners should know about and should rely on, because it takes a 45-minute charging stop and turns it into a half hour. That's one of those little things that, if you know, it makes living with an EV much more manageable. Now, if you're charging at home, where the vast majority of owners will do their charging, and where we recommend you do the vast majority of your charging, you're going to benefit from a pretty sizable 11 kilowatt onboard charger that utilizes either you can charge via CCS at home, like level 2, or if you have a Tesla style wall plug, you can use that. They're going to include the adapter and the charging cord with every Uncharted. It'll do a full charge in about 7 hours. So overnight, you plug in when you get home from work, it's gonna be a full battery when you leave the next morning. It is pretty fun to drive in twisty roads. So the suspension's great. You've got a McPherson strut up front, double wishbone in the rear, and the ride quality is excellent. It's nimble, it's quick in the corners, there's plenty of power. I mean, even though it doesn't have the same powerful rear motor that you get in the bigger Trailseeker, it's still, it never feels like it's lacking for speed. And on top of that, you get, assuming you get an all-wheel drive one, you do get some real Subaru capability. So we have X mode here that has settings for dirt and snow, and also mud and deep snow. They might have those reversed. They might call them deep snow, mud. It doesn't matter. And there's a couple of drive modes as well. So you've got eco mode, which we're gonna skip that one, and you get power mode. Now, from a stop, we had a little bit of wheel spin because we are driving in some pretty wet weather, but boom, we're at 60. Like, that wasn't even throttle to the floor. That was 0 to 60 in, call that 5 seconds? It really moves. You pair that with the steering, with the suspension. If you're in the market for I've said this earlier in the video, if you're in the market for a fun electric car and you want a Subaru, the Uncharted is the one to get. And it's pretty nice on the inside too. So we do have super soft door cards up top, a little bit of plastic over here, a lot of plastic down below, but even this top bit here that looks like it's kind of plastic or like a cheap rubberized material, it feels pretty good. And similarly, the dashboard is kind of covered in this like visually textured, it's not actually like, doesn't feel that textured, but it looks textured. Nice trim piece up top. This orangey bronze trim piece that runs the full width of the dash, I think is a nice touch. The steering wheel, it is the weird square shape that Subaru also uses in the Trailseeker, but I think it's kind of quirky in like a fun Subaru way, and it's necessary because you need the steering wheel to have like this flat top in order to see the driver information display, which sits atop the dash rather than kind of under a hood like you have in most vehicles. Now, next to that display, of course, is a huge 14-inch touchscreen display, runs wireless Android Auto, wireless Apple CarPlay. There's a lot of Toyota tech in here. It's all been rebranded for Subaru, but if you're familiar with Toyotas, you're gonna be very familiar with this. I really like the physical knobs for the HVAC. There's also a physical volume control down here, a few buttons down below, but most things are definitely in the touchscreen, and that might frustrate some people. There's also a bunch of software pieces that require subscriptions after a set trial. So now some of those trials, like the navigation is 3 years. So like if you're planning to lease an Uncharted, you don't have to worry about that. But if you're interested in what is locked behind a software subscription, or like what you might need to pay for in the future, definitely head to CarGurus.com, read our full review where we will have all of that detailed there. Below the screen, I really love that we have these 2 wireless charging pads, one next to the other. That's terrific. It is my turn to go, buddy. Sorry, just talking to the traffic. Believe it or not, there are a few cars around. We're currently in a lovely country road, though. I'm just having a delightful time. Seats. The seats are very soft, very like squishy, comfortable. It's all this StarTech synthetic upholstery in the Sport and the GT trim. You can get cloth in the base trim if you can find a base trim to buy. But they're soft. They're also supportive, which is kind of a tricky balance to find. And then you have more of that StarTech material on top of the center console here, which opens up this way and also this way, something that I've always liked. The center console is pretty big and chunky. It doesn't sit too high though, so you still have a pretty open air feeling in here, and there is some additional storage space down below that is carpeted, so like if you throw a phone or your wallet or whatever, it's not gonna like rattle around. I can't say the same for the door pockets. These ones are pretty hard plastic, and if you throw something in there like, I don't know, a pair of sunglasses outside the case, you put those in there, you're gonna hear those rattle around every time you drive on iffy pavement. Overall, it doesn't feel luxurious in here, but it feels well put together and pretty well thought out with like a real eye towards practicality. The same can't be said necessarily for the back seat, which is a little tight on legroom. I mean, your knees will have space, but you don't necessarily have a ton of foot room. And of course, the sloping rear roof, which makes that beautiful arresting silhouette, it cuts into your headroom. So, I mean, if you're in the middle seat back there with the headroom, it's like, feels a little tight. So if you need a bigger car, that's why the Trailseeker's there. Think of this as sort of like the cross-track to the Trailseeker's Outback. Woo, tight turn, here we go. Feel that steering. Oh, car coming in the other direction. It's all right. Nobody call the legal department. One look at this sloping roofline and you might be thinking, I don't think the Uncharted is prioritizing cargo space. You'd kind of be right. There are a few nice pieces here. You've got this dual level load floor, so if I can get it in there right, you can open up a little more cargo space, but you're still only looking at about 25.3 cubic feet. Now we do have this 120 volt power outlet in the trunk. That's pretty fun. It runs off the battery. You can power your blender if you need. But if cargo space isn't your priority and affordability is, well, the Uncharted is a decent value prop, particularly if you can find one of those base trims. Because yes, they only have front wheel drive, but they also only cost $36,450 after destination fee. Now, if you do want all-wheel drive, you need to get a Sport, which is a little more than $41,000, or a GT like this one, which is just north of $45,000 as tested. So let us know what you think in the comments section below. Is that a great deal, or were you looking somewhere else for your next EV? As always, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.